If I was to ask you to identify one factor in human behavior that gets us to act, you would probably guess motivation, even if you didn't have any training in behavioral psychology. Now, why is that? Because motivation is universal to all of us, and it's this food that we need. It gives us energy to accomplish all of our goals and achieve our life's vision if we have one. For most of us, it rarely feels like we have enough. And if you fall into this category, then this video is for you because I'm going to share the sum total of all we have learned about motivation and how you can go get some. But if you'd like a summary of findings, please accept this little nugget of wisdom from, yeah, somebody who's a little bit older, but totally gets it.
I don't know who needs to hear this today, but if you're struggling with motivation, just remember broke crackheads still find a way to get high. Don't get out hustled by a crackhead.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Upmarket channel. My name is Larry, and you're watching the video series Careers and Companies. Running a high performing organization demands that everyone in it accepts that the employment relationship is a two-way street, meaning both leaders as well as followers must bring their best selves to their roles. We want to not only maximize performance, but we want to enhance all those little ingredients that lead to performance. Those ingredients are the subject of this little contained set of foundational videos where we explore the Mars model of human behavior and the essential component of motivation, which is today's topic. Now, as a part of this two-way street, which by the way is a recurring theme on this channel, leaders are going to need to become adept at motivating employees, but that is the subject of our next video. Today, we're going to take a look at what we as individuals can bring to the table to boost our own motivation, either as a part of this employment bargain or as an essential tool for success should we be striking out on our own. Cool. All right, before we jump into it, let's first agree on what motivation is. Motivation represents the forces within a person that affects the direction, intensity, and persistence of effort in voluntary behavior. Okay, that's only one sentence, but there's a fair bit to unpack there, so let's break it down. First, let's look at direction, intensity, and persistence, starting with direction. You could have motivation to take your career in one direction or a different direction. Say you want to go into accounting or you want to go into marketing. Your direction could be related to a goal that you want to achieve, or direction could simply be a decision between doing something constructive or destructive. So, direction has all these different flavors. By comparison, intensity is pretty easy to understand. You're either really motivated, or you're just a little bit motivated, or you're not motivated, right? And talk to my students about this. They say, how many of you are motivated to take this organizational behavior class and do really well? Almost everybody raises their hand. Cool. Now I'm like, how many of you have your motivation level dialed out to like level 10? And of course, a whole bunch of hands come down, right? Because it's a required class for them. Plus, it's like school, so they're only so motivated. So we all have these different levels. But even if your motivation level is pretty intense, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to be persistent. You could be really motivated at work to go for the year end bonus, but 20% into the year, you realize that you are not tracking to the bonus and you lose interest. Your motivation dissipates. So direction, intensity, and persistence. Next, voluntary behavior.
Voluntary.
All behavior is voluntary as much as we want to believe otherwise. So that person said something to me and I was triggered. That's your motivation. So I said something back to them. It just happened, right? But the trigger is the fuel. Your mind and your emotions form the spark. So as much as these events happen in an instant, it remains within our own power inside of us to decide how we want to act in the moment. I mean, technically, if somebody puts a gun to your head and says, do this, and you do this, it's still voluntary. All behavior is voluntary. So that means we have to accept a certain amount of responsibility. The last component of that sentence is the force, and that's the mysterious one because it's this feeling that we're all chasing that's both palpable, but at the same time a little bit abstract, almost like there's this invisible entity positioned behind us giving us that much needed push. So the eternal question becomes, where does that feeling come from? Because we all need it. Well, that's what we're here to answer. The first place that our motivation comes from is our drive. Now, drives are naturally occurring phenomena, but if there's anything that most closely resembles that feeling that we are trying to chase, that happens in the most organic of ways, this would be it. Now, in terms of a dictionary definition that comes from the realm of psychology, drives are forces to satisfy a basic need that comes from either a deficiency, an imbalance, or some feeling of tension. Now, drives can slowly build up inside of you into a stronger and stronger force, or they can just come out of nowhere. Like you're driving, you're watching TV, you're looking at your phone, and then it's like, I need to eat. That happens to me a lot. Or you are working, day to day, week to week, month to month, and then you have this feeling that comes over you that something's a bit off. I need to go on a vacation. I need to do that soon. Or if you're at a party and you're socially awkward like me, you have this feeling that comes over you that is like, I need to leave this party right now. Introverts, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not always that something is wrong. It's just that something is a little bit off and our drives just naturally step in to correct that imbalance. Now, for people who have exceptionally high drive, that can be really great in terms of this natural juice that you have to create success. It can also feel a lot like anxiety, especially true if your personality profile is high conscientious, low agreeable, and high neurotic. If you don't know what those terms mean, I just produced a video on personality. Please go check it out and you'll understand the different personality dimensions. Entrepreneurs are a lot like this. So they wake up really early and they start their day with this feeling of dread that they are really far behind their goals and they're really far behind the rest of the world, and it just fuels them.
You've got a quote that says, most successful people are just a walking anxiety disorder harnessed for productivity. Why do you say that?
All my life, I've had this feeling that when I wake up, I need to do something. I'm just constantly whipping myself. I basically feel like if I don't achieve, I'm a piece of shit. I don't know where it comes from, but I am just obsessed with solving problems and I'm hyper aware of problems. Like at any given time, my brain is 5 steps ahead of all the things that could go wrong. My game, if you will, is to try and prevent all the terrible things from happening. And I think that makes me a good entrepreneur, but it makes me kind of a miserable person.
As it applies to the workplace, there are 4 common types of drives. The first one is the drive to acquire. We like to have stuff. So we acquire possessions, we acquire money, we acquire experiences, we acquire control, money, power, all sorts of different things. The drive to comprehend is another real cool one. This is your natural curiosity levels, and it ties very closely to the personality dimension of intellectualism in the openness dimension in personality. We like to learn and grow. We like to understand ourselves and understand the world around us. The third one is drive to bond. It's that social component. We like social experiences. We like to develop relationships, and we also like to have a support network. And the last one is the drive to defend. So we defend our mental health by creating boundaries. We defend friends, family, coworkers, society. We also protect our jobs and our status within our jobs. Now, we all have drive, but they operate at different levels of intensity. Some people you can hardly see their drives, other people it just screams out when you meet them. And if you've got a lot of drive, you've got this natural motivation that employers can sense and they absolutely love. And if employers are on the ball, like I have been, they are testing for your drive, especially the first 2 that I talked about. I have picked out some high drive employees in my life by just asking softball, getting to know you questions at the beginning of an interview, like, hey, what have you been up to lately? Be ready for questions like that because, yes, it's just, a little bit of social lubricant to get the conversation going, but there's an opportunity to demonstrate that you've got a little bit of drive, and employers love that. I have picked out some high drive candidates. I've hired them almost on the spot, and I have never regretted it because you have to work less to motivate them. And those people are giving you answers like, well, I'm learning a new language. Oh, I did my salsa class last night, and I'm learning how to cook, this, that, or the other thing. What are people just like doing? It doesn't mean you have to be 100% busy all the time, but what drives operate inside of you and how to just create that natural bias for action. I just brought up personality. Well, let me bring it up again. So I recently posted a video on personality. Hopefully you've had a chance to watch it. If you have not, no problem. I'll put a link in the description or I'll add a card somewhere in this video so you can easily access it. But understanding your personality can reveal some powerful sources of natural motivation. And what do I mean by that? Let's say, for example, you're high conscientious. Perhaps you are really detail oriented naturally. Perhaps you are results driven, or maybe you just really like to organize things. Those types of personality traits can be valued by a lot of employers. That's a natural source of motivation. So reflect on some examples that you may have and bring those forward to employers. It doesn't matter if it comes from your work life, your school life, hobbies, interests, volunteer work, anything, it all applies because it shows how your personality manifests itself in productive behaviors. Maybe you're high agreeable. Perhaps you don't like letting people down, or better yet, you love to please them. There are many jobs and many careers where this is valued. Maybe you should point yourself in that direction. Are you high openness, either in the artistic or intellectual subdimensions? Notice your creative habits. Notice your intellectual curiosities. If you could teach somebody something, what would it be? It's a really great question to ask yourself. The answer to that question could help you tap into your passions. And along with passion comes motivation. Passion, yes, something worth talking about, although it's becoming a bit more old school now. The millennials were big into passion, Gen Z, not so much, and then subsequent generations, we will see. But it is worth noting that it is a good idea to try to find something that you like doing. Now, how do you do that? That's going to be the subject of an entirely different video. Stand by for that. But you can also think of it in terms of finding your why. Have you ever heard that phrase before? Finding your why, which is connected to your life purpose. Purpose is really important in your life for mental health reasons and for career success and for sustainable happiness. Simon Sinek, have you ever heard of him? Sinek. He is most famous for his work on that. The idea of finding your why, beginning with a viral series of TED Talk videos that you may have come across if you're ever out there looking at content that relates to personal growth. But be careful, there is a trap. There's too much advice out there that tries to be binary about it and just say, hey, if you're passionate, you're going to be motivated. Well, to a degree, it may boost your intensity of motivation, but it doesn't guarantee persistence. Because the truth is, many things that we're passionate about, we kind of suck at least at first. I was like that. I was really passionate about music and learning to play musical instruments at one point in my life. So I started to learn to keyboard and play piano. From my perspective, I really sucked at it and became frustrating and I gave it up. So be careful that if you get locked into a passion, don't assume that everything is going to be easy for you. Passion needs to pair with a certain amount of grit in order to have success. Motivation is something that you can learn from your environment. Yes, you can effectively catch it if you hang out with the right people and hang out in the right places. So spend time with people who are doing the things that you want to be doing. Don't worry if they're ahead of you. Don't worry if they are more successful than you. In fact, that's even better. If you want to get healthier, hang out with people who exercise and eat right. If you want to become entrepreneurial, go to networking events and see what people are up to. Heck, just take a course in something that you're interested in. Just being in that learning environment can boost your motivation. So I have this student, I have to say I have this regret. The student graduated a number of years ago. We keep in touch, which is awesome. We follow each other in social media and check in from time to time. He has a lot of natural drive, but he posted this picture of himself at this seminar that to me had this really corny vibe to it. It was like one of those 10 steps to success or become a millionaire in 30 days kind of thing. And I commented with somewhat of a joke that wasn't entirely supported. And I regret that because upon further reflection, and also as I'm scripting this video and talking to you now, I realized I should take my own advice and be a lot more supportive and encouraging of people who place themselves in situations that can boost their motivation. Just being around people who want to be successful and have the motivation to do that is in many ways good enough. It doesn't matter almost what the seminar is about because you should be doing this as well. So, like I said, surround yourself with the energy that you want to feel. Hang out with people who are better than you at what you want to be and what you want to achieve. But hey, if you're introverted or socially awkward and don't feel really comfortable putting yourself out there, you can start slowly by doing it online. LinkedIn has a host of communities, for example, that you can join and just immerse yourself in a really cool vibe and have some meaningful, productive, relevant conversation and get the momentum started that way. The title here is like this $5 psychology term, behavioral activation. We need to use terms like that to make everything seem so much more credible, but the message here is really simple. And it goes back to the intro to this video where I showed you that sage advice from that lovely woman in her sunset years. And my stepfather actually had a similar message, although a similarly crass approach that was a little bit different. He was a cop. And just like my dad, he was somebody who would just go nuts if any of us kids were just spending too much idle time doing nothing. So he would do things like walk up to me, boot me in the ass, and go, "That's for nothing. Now do something." If you look past the physical abuse, if you look past the rather crass messaging, there is a point to be made there. And that is, don't sit around and wait for motivation to come over you. In fact, it works the opposite. Action breeds motivation, not the other way around, which is what we think. If you take action, you generate positive momentum in your life, and that in turn generates momentum. So the simple message here is this: you do have to start, and you have to start with action, and that part is on you. So creative people, songwriters, novelists, they don't wait for a feeling. They don't wait for inspiration most times. What do? They schedule a weekend or 6 months of writing time, and they go away to a cabin. They bring their instruments, their laptop, whatever. They sit down, they flip open their laptop or pull out their instrument, and they go, "Let's go." No idea what's gonna come out half the time. If you're a writer, just start typing words. Just start thinking. Stuff starts to come to you eventually. You're generating that motivation just by taking action. You don't have to make it that big of a deal. You can start really small and do something that's easy for you. Habits do take time to form. So you need to start with really small things to sort of get the momentum going. You'll see on social media, for example, memes of military generals who are all like, you need to make your bed as soon as you get up first thing in the morning. Now, I don't know if there's actual people out there that are preaching this publicly, but I believe it. Why? Because you're generating a result, you're generating an accomplishment that is really simple, and you're doing it early in your day. That kicks off a chain of momentum. That kicks off a subsequent desire to achieve another result. And that's what momentum is all about. And suddenly you do these things automatically because you feel motivated to do it, because you enjoy the feeling of accomplishing things. When we get to mental health topics on this channel, now that's going to be probably a few months down the line at least, because I have so many more things to come about careers and the job search and running companies before that, but we will get to it. The same thing comes up. You can watch, and I've watched dozens and dozens and dozens of videos and read so much stuff, and the advice that comes out, if you are locked down by your depression, by your fear, by your anxiety, is to just make your life really simple and do the smallest simple thing that you can do. And that's it. Call it a win. And then once you feel like you've mastered that small thing, move on to the next thing. Over time, you just breed more and more constructive energy. And that's a manifestation of your emerging motivation. I realize I'm giving you this message that all you have to do is start, and it's on you. Like, it's so simple. It's not simple for everybody, right? It's not always easy. So what holds us back? If we rule out environmental and situational factors, there are two common issues that reside in here and then in here, I guess, in your heart. The first is self-concept. A lot of us have poor self-concept. We think we suck, we think we can't do it. And fear goes along with this self-concept issue because we have a fear of failure. And if we do fail, then that just reinforces this terrible self-concept that we already have. If you don't understand what self-concept is about, I posted a video on that 2 or 3 videos ago. It also comes up in the video on personality. The solutions here are twofold. One, turn some of this negative self-talk into compassionate self-talk. In the personality video that I just posted, I showed a short clip from Gabor Mate. He's big on this, having compassionate conversations with yourself. Ask yourself why, in a compassionate way, do you feel the way that you feel? And challenge yourself to determine if your feelings are justified or if they're skewed or altogether made up, which is the case for a lot of us. We can look at something that is a positive and turn it into a negative for ourselves. So maybe engage other people, ask them, but start with compassionate self-talk and really challenge yourself to see if you're seeing things for the way they really are. And number two, find safe environments where it's okay to fail. I think a lot about this when I'm teaching. I tell my students flat out, ask all the dumb questions you can think of. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to put something out there that you think is going to be incorrect or wacky. You only need to be brilliant on the exam. For years, I wanted to learn the sport of curling. By the way, if you didn't know I was Canadian, now I basically reveal that to you. Have you ever heard the sport curling? It's kind of weird when you look at it, but I'm fascinated by it. And I always wanted to learn it for years and years and years. But I was sort of held back because it's a sport that doesn't look hard when you watch it, but you have to slide with really slippery shoes on really slippery ice. And you have to do this sort of deep, hard lunge and direct the rock, all this sort of stuff. It is incredibly easy to embarrass yourself and wipe out and make all kinds of mistakes. Well, eventually, I found a curling club that had this vibe on their website that it was more about the social. Like they kind of took the curling seriously in terms of everybody needed to try, but it wasn't ultra competitive. And they ran all of these learn to curl clinics to get people really comfortable and giving them an environment to fail. So by the time I was done with all of these clinics, I felt that I was barely decent enough to at least join a team, and I was off to the races, in my curling career. So I did that for about 5 or 6 years, and then COVID came along. I wanna get back into it because it really is a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a Canadian thing, most of you won't get it. But otherwise, just be open about your vulnerabilities, and if you encounter environments and people who are generally supportive, then you're good to go. And I guess there's a third bonus one, and that is to look into your overall mental and physical and spiritual and emotional health. Now, how do you do that? Again, there's all kinds of information out there. I may eventually get to this type of content in this video series, but not for now. But I will just leave it at making sure your state of mental and physical and emotional health, which includes diet, exercise, and sleep, is on point as best you can. The other reason we don't act is because of our best friend and our worst enemy known as our comfort zone. This is such a big topic, there's probably thousands and thousands of books and videos on this subject alone, but let me explain it to you this way. We live with this constant tension between hating where we're currently at and our aspirations and goals for a better life, however we define it. In between those two extremes is our comfort zone, and that is a huge area. Most of us are within our comfort zone. In your comfort zone, we do not take action. We are not motivated to act because everything is good. So if we want to change some things in our lives, we have to evaluate our best path to get to one extreme or another. So start at the better place and look at your goals, look at your aspirations, and you have to check yourself and say, if every day is going by and I'm not taking steps toward that better place in my life, maybe I need to check myself and get realistic. Are these goals just dreams that are so far out of reach? Maybe I need to find another vision for my life that's more attainable, and that'll encourage me to take those steps because I think I can get there. Or maybe you're just on the wrong track and you need to give up on those particular goals and look for something completely different. Or you can go in the other direction and you can make your life uncomfortable. Again, there are so many resources, books, videos, blog posts, all sorts of stuff on getting out of your comfort zone. You can do that by just taking an unconventional job. You know, I did that. My very first job out of college was supervising a 16-person accounting department at a bank in the Caribbean. And I had a marketing degree and only one accounting course. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And I was supervising people that I did not understand. But taking that job was one of the smartest things I ever did. I got up to speed, I figured out what I was doing, and I accumulated some incredible, fantastic bullet points on my resume. And also, I have some amazing stories to tell as a result. The other way to make yourself uncomfortable is to get a little bit more dramatic, and that is to just tear down your situation so that there's literal pain, like quit your job. By the way, legal disclaimer, I'm not telling you to do this. I am just presenting this to you as an option of a way that you can motivate yourself in more extreme circumstances. Just make things really difficult on yourself. Like I said, like quitting your job or I don't know, just moving to a different location and starting over. Some people do that just to inject a bit of juice into their life, a little bit of adrenaline because you're in this new situation and there's fear and all these other negative feelings that turn out to be motivational. I was watching, I don't even know if Dr. Phil is still on TV. I was watching this years ago with my mom, and this exact issue came up. They were talking to moms who had sons and daughters who were like in their 30s and 40s and had yet to get a job and move out, and they were not motivated to do anything. And he didn't phrase it in terms of like the comfort zone. But after interviewing the mom and understanding the situation, he realized that the moms were a part of the problem because they were doing all of the laundry, they were doing all of the cooking, they were cleaning their room, they were running these kids' errands, they were making everything comfortable for their kids. So they were not motivated to change their situation. And I remember because it was so stark, the recommendation that came from Dr. Phil, he said, start with take their bed out of the room. Like disassemble the bed, take the mattress out of the room so they have nothing to sleep on. That's where you need to start. The moms are like, what? Never really considered doing something like that. And that would go against their self concept of what a good mom is. But you have to make things painful. You have to make things uncomfortable, and then people become motivated to act. So our comfort zone, as I said, is our best friend. It can also be our worst enemy. So everything in life is impermanent. So it's dangerous to rest inside of your comfort zone because at some point things will change and sometimes you will get yanked out of your comfort zone. So my recommendation to you is take charge of your situation and lead the change so that you're not reacting to something, some kind of change that you do not want. For this last one, I'm going to combine a couple of things. I'm going to take a traditional academic model of self leadership and I'm going to supercharge it with neuroscience to make it much more contemporary. So, the base model of self leadership is not difficult to understand. You set goals, you engage in positive self talk, you track your progress, you reward yourself. Got it. It does work, not hard to understand. It gives you this framework for the discipline that you need, and it's a lot more empowering to be in control of your goals and taking action on them of your own volition rather than having somebody else control them for you. But I want to boost the impact of this basic model with extra ingredients. So the first comes from this Big Think video that I watched recently, and it builds on this idea of just starting. And it's about taking more meaningful steps that are still not that intimidating toward a more meaningful goal. And this video considers that our comfort zone is built from an adaptation of all this cognitive load we have with all these crazy things going on in our lives. So we shrink into our comfort zone and we stay there. So, how do we get out of there? The experimenter's mindset is the idea. We make meaningful change in a non intimidating way by removing our commitment to the change. We're just going to experiment. We're just going to try and we're going to see how it goes. So it reframes how we think about goal setting and how we think about monitoring. We just want to goal set, we want to monitor, and we want to stop there. Just those components of the self leadership model. It's an experiment just to incubate our curiosity. I'm going to try this. It's going to be fun. I'll see if I like it. So there's only a short-term commitment, and perhaps it's even in a watered-down version of what it is that you might ultimately do later on if things work out. Evaluate after, I don't know, say 30 days and see if it makes any sense to you. The example that the author of that video used was making a YouTube video. She decided to do a very short YouTube video every day for 30 days and see if she liked it. Turns out she didn't like it. So she didn't continue with it, so that was cool, but at least she was motivated enough to try, and that was worth something. For me, it was like working out in the mornings, right? I always felt a little bit inferior to the rest of the world because I work out later on in the day, and you see all these videos of things you need to do before 7 o'clock. These people who get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and they like work out for like an hour and a half or something, and then they have breakfast and go to work for 7 a.m. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to be like that. So I tried working out in the morning and I did it. I only made it through 24 days. I tried for 30. But as it turns out, just working out in the morning just makes me sick. It really does. I don't know if any of you experience that, but I feel groggy. I feel gross. I made sure that I went to bed at a reasonable time, changed those habits, was careful about when I ate, all those sorts of things. I hated it. I felt gross every day, which is why I stopped after 24 days. But at least, I get this little psychological bump out of trying and seeing if I really like it and seeing if it works for me. So there's a little bit of fun in experimentation. I mean, right now, like what time is it? It's looking at my clock. It is 11:15 p.m. and I'm recording this video. That's just when I work. That's just a better time for me. So I've accepted that and I've moved past this idea of I should be doing things in a different way and I should be changing my life in a certain way because I've learned that that really doesn't work for me. So I don't obsess about it anymore and I put it away. But again, as I said, I was kind of excited that I put the work in to give it a try and see how it went. That little bump of adrenaline that comes from experimentation leads me to the neuroscience element in all of this. Now, there's a great video that you can take in if you want to get really nerdy about your brain's relationship with motivation, and of course, comes from the Huberman Lab. You can learn all about the role of dopamine and serotonin and adrenaline in the motivational process. That video is really long. Let me summarize some key points as it relates to this video. Dopamine is a hormone that is released by a reward, by anticipation of a reward, or a threat or pain, and it inspires action. And that's the energy that we're looking for. That's why when you're out of your comfort zone, as I talked about a little bit earlier, either by experiencing pain or by actively engaged in the planning and activation of doing something rewarding, you get this little shot of juice. Dopamine acts like sugar or a drug or a shot of espresso. You get it in these quick hits, these little spikes of energy. Social media is all about dopamine activation, which is why you see all this funny stuff on TikTok. Maybe it can come from matching with somebody on Tinder, which is something I have only heard about and have yet to experience. The problem with dopamine is it dissipates quickly and right into a crash. And the stronger the spike, the bigger the crash, which is pain. The crash is pain. And that fuels our desire to chase dopamine again. Hashtag addiction. So our wholesome motivational process becomes hijacked and descends into finding the next hit of crack to ease our pain. So this is what our days have become because of our exposure to all sorts of media. Media is all about dopamine activation. We are bombarded daily with messaging against this objective. So we're all effectively walking around practically on the verge because of all this peaking and valleying of dopamine that's going on in our system that we don't realize is completely messing with our physical and our mental and our emotional health. What's worse is the more we chase dopamine, the softer the spike is, but the intensity of the crash is still there. So our chase becomes more and more about fixing pain rather than seeking even short-term pleasure. And this becomes an awful way to live. Why am I telling you all this neuroscience stuff? Well, the good news is, as it relates to this video, is that if you smooth out these intense spikes of dopamine that come with pleasure and pain, you actually lead a happier life. Why is that? Because the beneficial way to receive dopamine is in shorter, smoother, and less frequent spikes. And that is a pattern that is sustainable throughout your life. And it comes without those awful crashes. So how do we get this smoother experience? We get it by investing in rewarding things that do take some time and do take effort. So for example, taking a course, reading a book, anything to do with personal development or learning a new skill, for example. Yes, there is that downward slope of emotions that does happen in the beginning because those negative emotions come with the realization that this is going to be hard work, but that's only temporary. Some resilience will be a part of the equation, but there's a really huge payoff. Once you climb that mountain, no matter how big or how small the project you're working on, you not only get that release of dopamine, just the right amount, but you get this tremendous gift with purchase. You get serotonin, which is the satisfaction hormone. When you are satisfied, you are happier. You experience an improved mood. You get better sleep, better digestion, better bodily functions, and a net increase in your baseline level of happiness. Yay! My greatest sources of satisfaction in life that have been lasting, my greatest feelings of self-worth have come from some of the most difficult things and difficult jobs I've ever done in my life. There is a tremendous amount of satisfaction, for example, that comes from parenting for people who are really into parenting. That's not me, but it's an awesome thing for life satisfaction and life happiness. This, despite it seems like parents spend at least 75% of their time complaining about their kids. That's that downward slope. But when you climb that mountain and you send these wonderful kids that you've raised out into the world, it gives you lasting happiness and a smooth spike of dopamine and serotonin that is a gift that just keeps on giving for the rest of your life. All of this in turn fuels almost automatic motivation because you've created this loop that just repeats itself. You're getting the right levels of dopamine, now complemented by serotonin, so you have a better mood, better health, better feelings of satisfaction, and more happiness in your life, and you want more in a healthy way. So the message here is to please, if at all possible, try to avoid chasing fake happiness, which is those intense spikes of dopamine, and instead always be working on something, especially working on yourself, something that it takes a little bit of effort and investment and takes time to get to that reward, which is just enough to feel satisfied with yourself. Best place to invest is in your career value, your knowledge, your skills, your abilities. So get out there and gather experiences, learning, wisdom, accomplishments, anything you can. Doesn't have to be anything monumental. Just be working on yourself, just as we say on this channel. Keep it moving. As I close out this video and put together my summary thoughts, I've come to some conclusions. The first is that motivation, I believe, starts with a bit of mental rewiring. Motivation is not something that you just sit around and wait for. You wait for it to arrive. And the more I think about it, I would not say that motivation is best characterized as even a feeling. To me, motivation is a practice. It's a discipline. It's a system that we build and maintain that has the ability to pay dividends throughout our life that far exceed the effort that we put in. As a cultural aside, I was just watching some other video, I forget what the topic was about, and they went on this sidebar about love. And there were interesting parallels between love and motivation. And they were talking about love is just not this euphoric feeling, it is something that you incubate, it is a disciplined practice to create love in your life. So just like love, motivation is something you invest in, but it's absolutely manageable and it is scalable according to the level of energy that you have to invest at that particular time. That was a summary of everything we know about self-motivation coming from the internet, from influencers, from academia, and from my own personal experiences and perspective. Feel free to make use of any of the insights shared in this video or draw from any of the recommendations put forth to advance your career or your life just that one extra step. I will be building on this concept and applying it to many more workplace and career scenarios in future videos, but the next one that I'm putting out is about how to motivate others. And that is essential information if you are a leader or a supervisor, or you are an aspiring leader, supervisor, manager, executive. Watch for that one. It's coming out shortly. In the meantime, please keep it moving just a little bit. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see all of you real soon.